I'm so tired of people saying that it's just a movie, it's just a comic book, it's just a TV show. No, it's not. Stories are the building blocks of our culture, of ourselves, even of our own psychology. We are a product of the stories we tell ourselves about our own past and the experiences on a daily basis, but also the stories that we choose to spend time with. What types of values, our feelings, or whatever are they promoting? What types that we like to spend our time around? They're going to shape us. They're going to shape our personality and character, and they're going to shape our perception of the world and the acts and behaviors that we put out into the world. And people don't understand that. They go, it's just a movie. It's just this. I can like and promote whatever I want. Well, of course you can, but you should pay attention to the responsibility that you have.
Consume stories responsibly.
As a member of society, as a human being, responsibility to yourself.
Consider the consequences.
You need some balance. You need some certain criteria that is going to make sure you're promoting the right kind of works, or at least have thought through the type of work that this or that story is going to do in our culture, and then make your own decision whether or not that's something you want to support.
Consume stories responsibly. Consider the consequences. Consume stories responsibly.
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Everything's coming through. Still in our new setup, which is so much better. Signal, so that's good. But yeah, hopefully you had a good week and are ready for this Memorial Day weekend. I also want to say before I forget that Monday is Big Al's birthday. Big Al's, I'm just going to say it because I think you said it before, 60th birthday. Dude's getting old. But happy early birthday to Big Al, because I won't be streaming before Monday, or Monday even. So just wanted to get that out there. Big, I guess you're going to be doing a birthday stream or something. We were going to, it'd be really cool if Al and Fanman and I could hang out that day, but I've got stuff planned for Monday and Tuesday schedule wise that'll keep me from that. So we're all going to hang out the next week and watch a movie or something like that. But yeah, happy birthday to Al. We'll see if he's still around here. Sometimes he just pops in and says hello and then takes off to stream elsewhere or whatever. But it's there anyway. Welcome to the chat, everybody. Eldritch Fan popping in. And Eldritch Fan, you reminded me of the question you asked, which I owe you an answer to, because you super chatted it a while ago. Who is my favorite villain outside or within, like, exclusive to the Star Wars EU, so it doesn't cross over to one of the movies or anything? That's hard for me to answer. One, because I'm not nearly as well read in the EU as many of you are. I'm still enjoying my adventure through it. So, you know, you guys might be, how can you not say this character? Well, maybe I just haven't read that character yet. Also, there's a lot of them that are really cool. So I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit and give you two. Because I always say that there are two basic types of villains. Just like there are two basic types of heroes. We have our aspirational or our cathartic motivational. There are two basic types of villains too. We have the sympathetic villain, you know, the villain that there, but for the grace of God go I, you know, where you can see how they went bad, you know, or something. Then you've got the elemental villain, which is just evil, right? And both of those villain types are important. So for the elemental villain, thus far in my Star Wars EU journeys, I'm going to say Darth Nihilus. I know that some of my reasons for picking Darth Nihilus might be similar to the villain in Shadows of Endor, but Darth Nihilus is so much more terrifying because Darth Nihilus doesn't talk to you. You don't see his expressions. He's just this face, this mask, and then you just hear that really wicked Sith language, you know, or whatever. And he is just like, he himself is like a void in the Force. He's terrifying. Just goes around. He's like Galactus. He just goes around, you know, eating the Force, basically, you know, destroying planets and whatnot. So, yeah, he's my favorite villain, elemental villain I've run across thus far. My favorite sympathetic villain is Lucian Dre from the Knights of the Old Republic comics. So I know I've picked two villains from sort of similar times, you know, but the Knights of the Old Republic comics predate the Knights of the Old Republic games. They take place during the Mandalorian Wars. And Lucian Dre, if you haven't read those comics, first of all, oh my gosh, you need to. John Jackson Miller, again, one of the best writers to ever touch the EU. And these comics are like, I thought it was going to be filler, you know, just some sort of like filler stories in between the events of the game, but it's not. It predates the game, and we introduce this. We find this character Zane Carrick, who is one of my favorite Jedi ever. Now, he's absolutely an aspirational hero. He's just wonderful. But he was a Padawan, and kind of a failed Padawan too. And you know all this in the beginning story. It's not like I'm spoiling anything major for you. But he's a Padawan who wasn't even going to make Knight. He's always bumbling around, but he's got a good heart, but he keeps trying to like, and they're on Terrace there. And his master, there's like a 7 or 5 or so, 7 Jedi Masters there on Terrace, stationed there with their Padawans. And his master is Lucian Dre, who is the, son of the Dre estate and whatnot. And there's a lineage of Jedi Masters behind him. And Lucian and his cadre there, they believe so much in what they're doing. They end up, I mean, they're evil. They don't think they're evil though, and it tricks the Force. Like other Jedi around them can't tell that they're giving themselves to the dark side because they truly do believe that they're fighting the dark side. And it's an interesting little it's just really cool. And Lucian Dre is an example of what's so terrifying about people who are 100% programmed by their agenda. It's like arguing with somebody that 3 + 3 = 6, and they're just insisting that it equals 5. And you're like, well, look, here's a calculator. Look, here's a calculator that's over there. Here, see, look, 3 + 3 actually equals 6. And they're like, well, no, you programmed that calculator to say it wrong. Faced with the most obvious, it's like talking to a flat earther or something, So yeah, Lucian Dre definitely is the other one there. Nathaniel Zolo, welcome to the chat there. Looks like you got your name back. I don't know. Zolo was pretty cool though, but Nathaniel Zolo's ball. See, I'm just wanting to say Zolo now to shorten it. But welcome Darth Enigma, imaginative hobbyist, private eye in retrospectiva. You have a super chat here from Eldritch Fan. It said, before you start, regarding your last stream, any advice on how to point out a reference without being annoying? What do you mean? Like intertextuality, like referencing another work? And then you say no women Jedi, no women judges. You mean like in the Judge Dredd verse, or no women judges, period? Yeah, I think I need more information on your question. Like, I love intertextuality. Intertextuality is great. That's when, an example I give is the great short story by Nathaniel Hawthorne called Rappaccini's Daughter. And it's, I think I've told you guys about it before, but it ends up being sort of a dark reflection on the Garden of Eden story, where Rappaccini is the godlike character, but he's actually the evil one in this story because he's keeping his daughter in this little garden that he has, and he's doing all these experiments on her where she has to stay and amongst the pheromones of these plants or else she would die. And he tries to bring in this man that's been admiring her through the windows or whatever, and that ends up being sort of the dark Adam to the dark Eve. And there's another professor who is like I just saw myself freeze there for a concerning amount of time. Hopefully that won't happen again. But anyway, this other professor has like the goatee, and he's clearly like a Satan character, yet he's the one trying to warn the kid not to, go over here because it's dangerous and so forth. So that's kind of a setup in the intertextuality. The reference there is obviously Garden of Eden. You can do it in a way that's too heavy-handed if the thing that you're referencing ends up being a far stronger story than the story you're actually trying to tell. And I can't think of any examples right off the bat of that. But if isn't my story cool because I'm referencing, Dracula? Yeah, but are you telling anything interesting in your own story, or are you just reveling in the fact that you're able to reference Dracula? Anyway, that's hopefully that answers your question. If not, you can correct me with clarification. Ace Moic, welcome. I am very disappointed that nobody appreciated my reference here, but we will talk about it here tonight. Biz Chozo's Corner, Big Al, as I said, popped in. Crystal Ashes, welcome to everybody. Of course, my dear sweet sound engraver, Studio 96 Films. I think Big Al popped in. Yep, there he is. Says, thank you. Not sure about streaming, play by ear. Okay, yeah, for Monday. So, Crystal Ashes with a super chat. Thank you there very much. You said, I can't believe how terrible these Disney live action remakes are. By the way, go support the Lilo and Stitch live action movie. Really? Oh, I see. I get what you're doing. I get what you're doing. Okay. Live action movies are terrible. Oh, by the way, go support the live action Lilo and Stitch. We're winning somehow. I'm being facetious. Please don't support that movie. Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, it's pretty evident. I can't remember if Bob Iger has basically said as much, but even if he hasn't, you know this is what they're doing. Right now, Hollywood and big companies like Disney, they realize they've become too heavy-handed with their agenda messaging. So they're not leaving it. They're not saying, I guess if we want to make money, we need to leave the agenda messaging. No, because they've got stockholders, shareholders, and whatnot who still want that messaging. So they're just going to dial it back a little bit, or let's be a little bit more subtle for a while, until you come on back and start watching their movies again. And then we'll just have a repeat of before. And the only way to not see that cycle is to just stop supporting it. I watched a video popped up in my feed. It doesn't usually pop up in my feed, but your boy Zach, what is this channel called now? Like Comics Matter or whatever. But he was talking about, some of the channels that do nothing but tear down, each and every movie. And he's like, look, just go enjoy stuff. Just stop it. Just go enjoy stuff. And I'm kind of like, I'm somewhere in between the two, right? Like on the one hand, no, let's recognize that the evil is still out there. They're still going to try to poison all of our great art. But if all you do is point out how bad everything is like that, we get it now. We get it. Just stop giving it attention and go look at all the great stuff that's in the store of the history of movies and books and whatnot. And when you do see something new that pops out, give it a chance if you want. But, anyway, we've spoken about that before. Gentle Savage, thank you for the super chat there. £5 said, yo, Prof, what did you think of the Tron Ares trailer? I have not seen that. Also, have you ever seen Tron Legacy and Tron Uprising? I love both of those movies. I love Tron and Tron Uprising. I also really like the Tron world in Kingdom Hearts 2 that you get to go into. That's really fun. And I think it even had oh man, I shouldn't be blanking on his name. The actor from Tron, but also from Babylon 5. I think he even came back into the voice in the Kingdom Hearts game. But no, I haven't seen anything about the game trailer or anything. I'll have to look that up. Thanks for letting me know about it. All right, scrolling on down here. Oh, I get what you understand. Is talking about the referencing the source material, like making a story referencing the source material. Gotcha. Okay, so something like Dredd, and I was talking about how, if I like this movie Judge Dredd or whatever, and people are being annoying about the source material, I think if you're writing a story, like let's say when the people got the contract or whatever to make the Dredd movie of 2014, I really like that they said, look, let's just focus on a concise and closed story. Like I said before, they had unity of time and unity of place. Everything. It's a little bit of a, you guys let me know if I'm lagging or anything, but I think I'm okay. But there's unity of place in that building. There's unity of time. It's like in the space of a night or day or whatever. The problem is that they do introduce some elements of the greater universe that we don't really have explanations for. Like, okay, so we get the premise. The premise is fine. We're in a post-apocalyptic world where these mega cities exist. Earth outside is burned out and whatever. Fine. But then there's also mutants. So there's a thing. And then there's this judge thing situation. Like a Star Trek writer once said very usefully, I think, it said, you can only really ask your audience to believe one unbelievable thing at a time. So, for example, in the Star Trek example of that, the Star Trek, the original series, we all accepted the premise, okay? Wagon train to the stars, we get it. We're in space. We're in the future. Fine. But each episode, you can only have one new unbelievable thing at a time. So if we're dealing with, a non-carbon-based life form, well, that's the one unbelievable thing we can deal with at that time. You can't also throw in, but there's another carbon-based life form that learned to fly and, secretes jello or something. You can't throw in too many random unbelievable things. Good science fiction knows how to milk what it can from one good setup or whatever. That's a big topic. I could get into that and pick it out some more, but it's a big deal. Anyway, hopefully that answers the question. Gentle Savage, $2 there, thank you. Said, Prof, is it ever okay for aspirational heroes to lie? Lie is a big word. Like, what do you mean lie? Like, I can see your super chat too, Studio Super. I'll get it here in a second. Um, like I lie to my daughter all the time because if I told her the truth, it would cause her too much anxiety. You know, like, so to do with context, my daughter's on the autistic spectrum. Cognitively, in many ways, she's a toddler, even though she's 13, and she gets a lot of anxiety. And so, like, if she likes routine, so she knows that when we get home, you know, when I pick her up and take her to the house, that Michelle is here, you know, Sound Engraver's here. And if and she says Sound Engraver's there, now if I know that one day Sound Engraver had to leave for work early or whatever, I'll just tell Alyssa in the car, nope, she's there, because otherwise Alyssa would spend the whole trip anticipating this difference in her routine that's going to happen when she gets home, and she'd be freaking out. It's better just to lie to her in that moment, and then when we get closer, go, oh, well, whoops, she's not here, but that's okay. That's over now. Transition's over. We'll deal with it, you know. I mean, that kind of lie, sure, yeah. Lying with malice or lying with intent to deceive for selfish reasons or something, then no, something like that, an aspirational hero wouldn't do. Man, now you want to get to the topic tonight. Not that I'm not going to turn down the super chats though, but Studio Super, thanks for the 999. Say on what Crystal said, I heard of certain changes they did with the story, the Tron story. Okay. They spit it out. They spit on the idea of motherhood. It's all about you. This doesn't surprise me. Rewatch the animated one. Still classic. Yeah. They did a Tron animated series that spun off of Tron Legacy, right? I haven't seen that. I did kind of want to watch that. Yeah. Interesting. That doesn't surprise me though. It doesn't surprise me a bit. Studio Super again, in rewatching the animated one, it's strange when when I was younger, I was really sympathized with. Oh, you're talking about I'm sorry, you're not talking about Tron, you're talking about Lilo and Stitch. Okay, that doesn't surprise me at all that they would take away the motherhood thing in the live action. Yeah, not at all. You said rewatching it is sympathize with Lilo. Now you're older, you sympathize with Nani. Age is a strange thing. Yeah, I love the character Stitch. I love the animated Stitch. I watched the sequel they did. I think they even had a series too, didn't they? Maybe I'm misremembering that. I love Stitch in the Kingdom Hearts games when he pops up. I love Stitch when he pops up when I would go to Disney World back in the day. I like the Stitch ride that they did, and he would pop up. I think they even had I think they even allowed Cinderella's castle to be covered in toilet paper, like on the one day of the launch of that ride or something, you know, like part of Stitch's mischief. And love the character, but I can't watch the animated Stitch movie, Lilo and Stitch movie anymore since I've been a father, because that one scene where he realizes that he's different, but he's been reading the Ugly Duckling book, where the little duckling, you know, goes out into the forest and is screaming about I'm lost, and then his family comes and finds him. So Stitch, realizing that he's different, takes that book and runs away from Lilo and goes out into the woods at night and then just cries out, I'm lost. Like, no, oh gosh. Once you're a parent, you just can't watch certain things anymore. Just for me anyway. So yeah, but it doesn't surprise me at all that they gutted the live action of any of those great motherhood themes or anything like that. You know, doesn't surprise me. All right. So, hopefully I answered everybody's questions. If you have more, feel free to throw them out there. It's you know, we can talk about other things or talk about more of this as you go. But the topic that I had for tonight, I watched a lot of movies this week, rewatched/watched, you know, for the first time, depending on the film, that had to do with virtual reality, as I say in the topic there. And I've always been fascinated with virtual reality. Always been fascinated with it because, you know, I talk a lot about mythology, and what I tell you guys, I say it in the opening, you know, segment of the video there. Stories shape us. You know, we are defined by the stories we tell ourselves, and so that's our perception of reality, right? If you tell yourself the story that evil people are outside, and if you go outside, you're going to get mugged or raped or whatever, then that you're going to live your life according to that reality, even if that's not the reality, even if that's not true at all, it's not objectively true, you will live your life according to that truth, and that will basically, for all intents and purposes, become your reality. So we are shaped by the stories we tell ourselves, and that's, you know, religion, that's life experiences, and that's also, of course, the fictions that we spend time around will mold and shape us a bit. It will shape our values, it'll shape our fears, our aspirations, and so forth. And virtual reality plays into that idea, because virtual reality is another perception, right? And even though we're still light years away technologically from an actual real virtual reality world where you know, put on a headset and suddenly you feel like you're in this world, and you know, everything, senses and everything are all there. I mean, right now they just can't quite bridge the gap. Like, all you've got are the visuals now, right? You put on the Oculus or whatever. I get dizzy every time I try to put on a VR set or whatever. I don't own one, but every time I've tried to play around with one at some place or whatever, I get dizzy because my inner ear is not responding to the same stimuli that my visuals are, you know, and so so we're still light years away from that, obviously. But I mean, light years. I mean, who knows? Next year they could announce that, you know, whatever. We don't have it quite yet, but you know, with the video games and stuff we have, with the MMOs that we have. I mean, I remember when Second Life was the big thing. You guys remember that? I don't even know if that's still around. You know, but with the online games and whatnot that we have now, I mean, people, or even just, you know, a social media platform like this, people they set up an identity. You know, I mean, how many of you here are actually using your real name? Some of you are. And it's not, and if you're not using your real name, it's not like, oh, how dare you? But I mean, it's easier once you use an assumed name, and there are reasons, security reasons, you might not want to. That's fine. But once you set up an assumed name, it's very easy to start just kind of making this personality that you're going to be in this forum, you know. And then you start thinking, okay, well, I didn't say that. You know, this person said that. This character said that, or whatever. That, you know, and you start separating. Or when you're playing video games, like people talk to me all the time. But yeah, but you know, hey, did you ever play KOTOR with the dark side? I'm like, no, I don't like how that feels. I don't want to play a game and be an evil villain. I get how it might be sort of an intellectual exercise at times or something, you know. It's not real people that you're talking to, they're computer programs. But it still can have an effect on you, who are a real person, you know. So the two topics do intersect quite a bit, you know, virtual reality to whatever level, and the idea of stories that we tell ourselves. It's all sort of linked to our perceptions of reality. And Hollywood and books and movies, they've been dealing with this theme for a long, long time. So I picked a few to watch. There's still more that I've got on my my watch list and / rewatch list. But I caught a few this time that I had never seen before. So let me cover a couple of them. The first one is Brainstorm. I've got it in the list down there in the comments section. Brainstorm is a really, you know, people who would tell me about this movie before never really sold it to me, or never really said the movie was as good as I think it is. You know, I would have watched it a lot earlier, but it's a weird film for a number of reasons. But it's a film that, you know, you think more people would have heard about. It's one of Christopher Walken's first big movies. Was Natalie Wood's last film before she died tragically. So it was 1983, a Douglas Trumbull film. As I said, Christopher Walken, Natalie Wood, Louise Fletcher is another big part in it. And it's the principle, or the idea is that this company is developing this, you know, sort of a VR headset, sort of, but it's not really VR. What it does is it records somebody's memories, somebody's experiences, and then lets you relive them as though they're your own. So kind of like Total Recall, but not quite. These are real experiences. These aren't fabricated experiences. So, you know, to sell it to their investors or whatever, or to their military or whatever, you know, they have a guy wear the recording headset while he's going skydiving and doing all this stuff. And of course, you know, he goes behind the scenes and like records himself having sex with this woman, and like they secretly pass that around the office. You know, you're going to go there at some point, but they go deeper with it in the movie, because Christopher Walken's character is getting a divorce from Natalie Wood's character. And they're like to the point where everything's cordial and civil between them. Everything, there's just a matter of like selling the house basically, and that's it. You know, they're still technically married, but they're, you know, they're on their way out. And they have a son. But at one point, Natalie Wood's character comes in, and Christopher Walken's character is wanting to try something, to test the material, the machine. So he sits there and he says, "Here, put this on," and he records her looking at him for a second or two and having a little moment or two conversation. And then he tries to wear it himself and, you know, replay the experience that she just had. And they find that also emotions and that trigger memories and whatnot are also recorded. So when he puts on the recording of her looking at him, what he sees is her memory of the first time he was telling her he wanted a divorce. and he's yelling at her and all this kind of stuff. And they're going, you know, and he realizes, and he gets really mad. He takes it off and he says, "That's not me, that's you." And he's right, because any memory you have of somebody else, that memory you have of them is not objectively them as they were in that moment. It's your perception of them in that moment. Now, some things can't really be misconceived, right? If he's yelling at you and being a jerk, then yeah, that was true in life, but you're remembering your perception of that moment. But then he starts to think about how she perceived him. And he goes home and he starts to think about all of their life together and whatnot. And he makes this video, records himself, you know, with this machine, of all of the ways that they, you know, the good times they had or whatever, and shows her that. And it ends up kind of like resparking their marriage, like they fall in love again and so forth. But it's an interesting exploration of even who you think people are in your life is some sort of reflection of you. If you know, if this one person really crazy annoys you, you can't stand being around them. Well, it's because that's just shone a light on something about yourself, either an insecurity or something in your past that you've just developed a real sensitivity to, or whatever, and so forth. So it's, you know, and the movie goes even farther. Of course, a woman ends up having a heart attack and dying with the machine on. So that's the big story arc of it, is them trying to experience what she experienced in the moment of death, you know, really big deal. It's a wonderful film. It's not a perfect story, and that's for a number of reasons. Natalie Wood actually died on her tragic boat trip. Whether you think that's conspiracy or not, I don't know any of the details about that. But she died in the middle of making the film. So they had to kind of rewrite the script a little bit and get her sister to stand in for some parts or whatnot. So, you know, it would have been a slightly different story. There are some parts of the story that just aren't quite fully fleshed out, you know, but I like the exploration that it does. There's also the older guy who works there, who goes ahead and watches the recording of the other guy having sex with this young hot woman or whatever. And this is an older guy, and he watches it so much that he almost like burns out his brain, right? They have to like take him to the hospital and make sure he's okay. But he has like a total rebirth in life after that moment. And it's not, and he says it's not about the sexual fantasy. He says, you know, I was watching something, and he doesn't say this outright, but this is the context. This is the subtext of it. He was watching an experience that he would never, ever have. And it opened him up to realizing, you know, he should go out and do the things that he truly wants to do. And those things don't end up being sexual or whatever. He just wants to go live life, to play golf more, to do this and that, you know, and that's fascinating. I mean, what if, you know, movies do this, stories, you know, stories and books do this. They give us somebody else's perception that we maybe didn't have. And they can open up doors for us. They can open up, you know, our realities for us to go explore in new parts of ourselves and so forth. So I just love that. I love that. And I think it's a great, great film. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie. There are some holes here and there, whatever, but I didn't see a problem with the pacing. I mean, I was into the story. I wanted to find out what was going to happen. And there's a lot of tension with them trying to, you know, the government's getting involved with this project, and he's wanting to still maintain, you know, certain control of it, or at least be able to experience what he wants. So Brainstorm is great. It's called Brainstorm. The other day, it was on sale on Amazon Prime, streaming wise. Now, I don't like just to stream. I like to own the physical media. Now, Groove.com, GRUV.com, they have a sale right now. Certain set Blu-rays are on sale for $7. So I ordered this movie for $7. You can't beat that for a Blu-ray. And I wasn't going to get it in time, but it is on Amazon streaming on sale for like $5. You can own it, you know, as much as you can own anything that you know, own on a streaming platform. You know, it's for like $5, which beats, you know, $14.99 or whatever. So, so I recommend Brainstorm if you like these kinds of themes. Christopher Walken's great. And it was also before he was the great Christopher Walken too, you know, so he doesn't have a lot of the just things that you might expect from him in other movies. You know, he's just playing more of a regular guy. So yeah, it was great. I loved it. I've got a super chat here from Eldritch Fan. Let me know if I've missed any more. But you say, I'll give Darkside KOTOR this. You can play Smart Evil. You get to be a Machiavellian or Mad Dog. It was fun until dealing with Mission. Never again. Oh, I know. See, that's the thing. You don't want to hurt these characters. Like Mission, she's like the little sister-like character that you take under your wing. And yeah, these games show that you can just annihilate these characters if you want. And And yes, I know they're not real people, but it's just like, why would that make you feel good? Like, I'm with you. Like, yeah, it's just like, oh man, I don't want to play like that. I don't want that. Gentle Savage, Prof, have you ever read Usagi Yojimbo? No, I've not. Not read that. I closest I get to Usagi is either either Tim Lim's shoot, I can't think of the name of it, the comic with the bunny, the rabbit, the secret agent rabbit or whatever, that was great. Or when Usagi kind of popped up in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But you're talking about the are you talking about the see, there's also a Akira Kurosawa film, so I don't know which one you're talking about, but the answer's still no. But thanks for asking. I need to watch some more. My Akira Kurosawa viewings really stick to the Shakespeare-inspired ones at first. Then, of course, Seven Samurai as well. But I could probably, I certainly wouldn't hurt to check out some more of his stuff. Yeah, the Samurai Rabbit. Yeah, so no, I haven't read that. Black Ops. Thanks, that was it. Black Ops. Hey, Smokes. Yeah, when you discover you can turn Giovanni back to the last. Oh, all right, wait. Well, when I discovered that I could turn Giovanni back to the last during my second playthrough, I always went out of my way to help everyone characters and name. Yeah, exactly. It just that's satisfying to me. I would not have fun at all playing a game like that. It's one thing to play like is it still around? They had that game where you could play multiplayers online, and it was basically a Friday the 13th game where like one character was Jason and you were trying to kill the other characters, but the other characters were like other players who knew what they were getting into and everything. That's one thing. Okay, that's one thing. It's another thing to play a game where it's like, hey, you want to try and psychologically break down these other characters and ruin their lives from the inside out? Isn't that fun? No, that's not fun. You know? So, yeah, that's just me, though. The next movie I watched that I'd actually never seen either was Videodrome. And this one's kind of infamous. David Cronenberg's Videodrome, 1983. I don't know why. You know, it was 1983, so I was like 4 years old. Obviously, I never saw it. Never caught it anymore, I guess. I don't know why. David Cronenberg's known primarily for his body horror kind of themes and whatnot. And I don't like body horror, like of any kind of horror. Body horror is the one time that I really don't like, unless it's done well. Like you might say Frankenstein is body horror, and that's really done well, you know. And I don't see Videodrome. It's not the same as The Fly or anything like that. The body horror in it is the exploration because it's a question. And I forget to write the name down of the, there's an actual scholar that Cronenberg based this idea on, which is that media is changing us. Media is changing even our bodies, right? And it's so funny because Videodrome in 1983 was dealing with like the floor model analog television, you know, and videotapes, you know, or radio signals, you know, so it's very low tech by today's standards. You can only imagine how terrified they would be with all the technological innovations we've got today in media. But the fear was still there, you know, in the world in general. And it is true. It is true that media changes our minds and our bodies. Certainly not to the extent that it did in the movie. I mean, it's not, you know, it was like making him hallucinate to the point where his body, you know, was changing and stuff like that and everything. So that's not, obviously that's not in reality. But you think about how technology does affect you physically. I don't know if I would need these glasses if I wasn't staring at a screen all the time. I really don't think I would. I mean, eventually at some point in life, I'd probably need them anyway, but I don't think I'd need them if I wasn't staring at a screen all the time. But you know, it's kind of worn my eyes out a little bit. People have this sort of a hunch, you know, this hunch now from looking at their phones or looking at, you know, so it's changing people's posture, which is a permanent change. I mean, it's something that maybe you could change back. It's changing our brains. You know, brain scientists will talk about how the human brain now is really just not as capable of paying attention to one specific thing for in depth for a prolonged period of time. I know this as a teacher. Oh my gosh, my students can't handle, I've said it before, You know, it used to be when I was growing up that if a teacher wheeling in on the big cart, the television, everybody's like, sweet, we get to watch a movie this period. Nowadays, if I show a movie for a class period, it's like I've tortured the students. They are more upset that I was going to show a movie than if I just sat up there and lecture, because a movie sort of demands more attention, and it's just like, oh, I'm bored. I can't. Oh, yeah. Everybody has to get up and go pee as soon as I start a movie in a class, and it is sad. It's just because their brains have so atrophied. They're unable to focus on any one thing at a given time. They gain the ability to sort of multitask at a much shallower depth, because that's what you do when you're online, right? You check your updates, see if anybody commented on that while you're sort of watching a video over here, while you're skimming through a story over here, and it takes a million things to keep you stimulated, because you've lost the ability just to focus on one thing. And that has all sort of implications for the human mind and being able to truly understand, certainly emotionally understand, right? You look at through COVID, especially these poor kids who grew up, with the technology that we have today and have the pandemic on top of that. I mean, there are kids who just can't emotionally empathize very well at all. Can't form human bond connections very well. And it might sound like I'm being hyperbolic, but I'm not. I mean, it's serious. It's a real deal. So yes, media does affect us. It changes our minds, our bodies, and whatnot, not to the extent, that the movie recontextualizes it, Videodrome recontextualizes it in. But it does very well. The movie's got James Woods, the great James Woods, and Debbie Harry, from Blondie. She'd done a few movies too. It's really great. It also ties in a little bit to the idea that, if media is the evolution of mankind, that's how we're going to evolve, or it's how we are evolving, changing, and whatnot. And in other movies, we'll deal with this in a second too, if I get to them all. But there's also the idea that violence, sex and violence, that kind of primitive stimulation in the brain is what makes you susceptible or able to change and able to evolve or whatever, which is a twisted idea. But it does play off to the idea. I mean, when he first sees Videodrome, it's basically like a snuff film. He doesn't realize it's that. He thinks it's all staged and whatnot, but it's like a snuff film. And he himself runs this channel, which is basically a pornography channel. I mean, maybe they don't quite call it that because it's public access or something. I didn't quite get all the setup of that. I don't think they give you too much information about that in the movie. But the idea that once you go down that, this is why people who get hooked on pornography end up hooked on some really sick stuff, because the thrill of the taboo nature of looking at this vanilla softcore porn at first, if they do that too much, then the thrill wears off and they've got to look at something a little more hardcore, and then a little more taboo, and then a little more this. I mean, it's just like any addiction, like any drug. You'll get used to whatever dosage or whatever, one you're on, for a while. And then if you're going to keep chasing that buzz, you got to go deeper and deeper and deeper. So that was an interesting story thread to go along with the idea of, and then there's sort of religious overtones too, like the all hail the new flesh, we are the new flesh made one, or whatever, the new media made flesh, or whatever as they call it, so it's a surrealistic film. Don't look for every little question to be answered by the end of it, but if you want to see a cool exploration of some of these ideas, Videodrome's great in that respect. So I liked it. I can see from the comments there that some of you have seen that too as well. Timing's going a little bit by here, but let me get to a couple more here just to see. Super chat, at least one that I missed here. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any of these. Did I already read this one? Nathaniel Zolbel said, I admit that I picked Renegade options in Mass Effect during my Paragon playthrough, but I couldn't commit to full Renegade run. Mass Effect was interesting because I played it through trying to do all Paragon 2, but I think it was was it part 2 or part 3? Some of the options it would give you that you would either earn Paragon points for or Renegade points didn't really make sense. It wasn't like clearly a dark side choice or a light side choice. It was some of the choices you could make were good things to do and good choices, and it would still give you Renegade points for. So it got a little confusing, but the way the game counteracts that is it doesn't matter. Even if you make a few Renegade points, you're not going to lose your Paragon points. You're still solidly a Paragon if that's what you mainly played through in. But yeah, I shared that experience too. when you're playing Knights of the Old Republic, though, nothing beats going to the pause screen and checking your character stats. And if you're all light side, Sound Engraver laughs at me because I'm like, I'm going through the different party members in the party and everything and seeing what their light dark side is. And as soon as I get to my character, like boom, even the lights like flash up, you know, for the light side and stuff. It was awesome. But thank you for that. Next movie I have, which is one I'm sure more of you have seen. I imagine way more of you have seen this. Mr. T-Man Cronenberg was high as hell when he made Videodrome. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. It's just, I mean, I don't know anything about Cronenberg himself or the making of the movie necessarily, but it's always easy to look at stories, even as well far back as Alice in Wonderland or any surrealistic story, and go, "Oh man, what is that dude smoking, thinking that?" And yeah, maybe sometimes that's the case. On the other hand, surrealist is a specific genre, so it is something that you don't have to be high yourself to really create some really freaky surrealistic stuff, because it's a specific genre that you know you're going into, you know you're working with or whatever. But yeah, anyway. Next movie I have, I know a lot more of you have seen, is a 1992 The Lawnmower Man. Brett Leonard film. Everyone talks about this movie as though it's is based on a Stephen King short story. It's really not. There is a short story by Stephen King called The Lawnmower Man, and it's a stupid little story. It's not even worth your time reading. It's a cool idea, but it reads more like a sketch, like him trying out an idea for a few pages and then just sort of abandoning it because he gets bored with it and he's just not going to write a novel about it or whatever. And the idea is that like the god Pan would own like a lawn care service, pastoral care. Fun, maybe sort of a magical realism idea, but it's like it's not developed. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just a stupid story. Again, you know, as I say, writers like Stephen King or Dean Koontz or whatever, you know, who writes so prolifically, or even the Romantics back in the day, you know, when you publish everything that you fart out at the end of the day, most of it's going to be crap. If you're a good writer, and I think Stephen King is a good writer down to at the heart of it all, you can put out some really cool masterpieces. But when you're just cranking everything out there and publishing everything that you write, you know, writing to that next deadline, to that next deadline, to that next deadline, you're going to publish a lot of crap. And in the Lawnmower Man short story is drivel. But anyway, somehow people got the movie rights. I don't even know why they'd want the movie rights to this story. It really is. I think it was just in the day where like anything with Stephen King's name remotely attached to it was going to make money. So any kind of rights you could pick up from his or whatever. But they realized when they were trying to develop a story out of this little short story, a script rather, they realized as they were trying to develop a script out of this short story, The Lawnmower Man, that they couldn't do it. They needed to just really scrap the whole idea and bring in something else. In the movie, a couple lines survive, and like the idea of a lawnmower killing somebody sort of survives at one point, but that's it. So they changed it up, and I think the story that they developed it into is a really cool idea. It's been described, I've seen it described in places as sort of a mixture between like Flowers for Algernon and Frankenstein, and mix in some virtual reality tensions and anxieties in there as well. And it's not a perfect film. Pierce Brosnan and Jeff Fahey, great actors, great portrayals. Jeffrey Lewis does a great portrayal. The rest of the actors kind of suck. Not all of them, but most of them. Like the guy who plays the head of the company that's funding the experiments, you see his face mostly on a screen. He is just laughably bad. He's trying so hard to come across as powerful and dangerous, but he made me laugh. So it's not a great film by any stretch of the imagination, but there are some good performances in it, and I think some of the ideas in it are really great. And I like the idea, you know, of this mentally challenged man. We don't know exactly what he has, but he's a man who in many ways has the mind of a child, sort of this ward of the church, you know, working for this man's lawn mowing service and whatnot. And then this scientist working for this ultimately government funded or whatever kind of thing, wants to use virtual reality with a combination of these nootropic drugs and whatnot to try to develop his mind, develop his brain. And of course, it works so good that he ends up being like hyperhuman and sort of like superhuman evil, you know. So really some cool Frankenstein explorations in there, some good intertextuality with Frankenstein aspects of there. I've never really read Flowers for Algernon, but I know the basic setup, and it does have, you know, that kind of references there as well. It's let's see what I wrote down about it. Anything else? It does have the idea too that Videodrome had about technology or media being sort of responsible for human evolution at this point. And as Pierce Brosnan's character tries to argue in the movie, no, this media is for communication. And that's so true, right? Because the internet itself, I mean, what did people always use to defend the internet or social media? What's social? It's bringing people together. It's making connections, you know? And that's true. That's absolutely objectively true to some point. I mean, I met my wife. I'm married to Sound Engraver because of social media. You know, I just found this hot girl like lurking in the chat on my channel and started checking out her channel and so forth, you know? So yeah, and Fan Man and I met each other on social media. Big Al and I are able to keep in touch via. So yes, social media, it is communication, and that's the good thing of it. But we all know that there's a plethora of evil that comes along with that. And you know, so that's an interesting thing that this is exploring even back in what, 1992 when it was made. So that was interesting. There's also the idea of power versus innocence, because every character, it's almost laughable. Every character in Power in the movie is a jerk. Is a real jerk, a bully, basically. And, you know, you see it in general in the Job is the character's name, the Lawnmower Man himself, Jeff Fahey's character. When he's simple, when he's, you know, just his typical mentally challenged self, he's pure as the driven snow. He's just the greatest guy in the world. You feel sorry for him. You like him. You want to hang out with him or whatever. I'd read some comics with the guy. Sure, great. You know, he loves his comic books. But then as he becomes more evolved and gains all these powers, it's like that corrupts him, you know? So, so it explores the idea of power versus innocence and whatnot as well. Sounding good. Yay, social media. That's right. That is right. Oh, interesting. Elfrender said Lawnmower Man was the first film I had surprised the VHS rental was different from the theatrical release. Yeah, because I don't own it, so I did have to watch this streaming, and I watched it on Amazon, and it was the director's cut. And I don't know if I'd recommend I need to watch the theatrical cut too to really judge them both. But there were places where the pacing of the director's cut was like, oh my gosh, can you just move on? Like the intro is way too long. We spend way too much time setting up what this company is and what they're doing with the Dr. Angelo and, you know, what Job's setup is. And like, oh my gosh, that could have been set up in like 3 pages. Just move on, you know? So, so I'd have to watch the theatrical cut and see if it's any better. I imagine it probably is, but sometimes a director's cut has a valid reason for being, you know? Yeah, I haven't seen Lawnmower 2. I know they made Lawnmower Man 2, what's it, Beyond Cyberspace, or Job's War when it was released on home video. Yeah, never saw that. I don't know if I'd really watch that. Not sure. Steven said Lucy ripped off Lawnmower Man. Is that the movie with Scarlett Johansson by what's his name? Can't remember the director's name. But if that's the one, yeah, I haven't seen that one. I read the premise of that one, and I thought it sounded more like a ripoff of Johnny Mnemonic. But maybe it's a mixture of a lot of those things. Who knows? All right. Yes, Sound Engraver stream tomorrow. I'm still got another thing to talk about here, but just before I forget, and don't it's a fascinating stream heading your way tomorrow. I wittingly read an AI assisted novel. Yeah, I've had to hear about this novel and her experience reading it, so you will not be sorry for tuning in. All right, so the last movie I have for you, I'm going to try and cover this in our given amount of time here. I love this movie. It's getting so hot in here. Take this off. I don't know if I need to switch over from dehumidifier to air conditioner or what, but getting a little toasty. This last movie, you know, you have favorite movies sometimes, and they're classics. It's because you really appreciate how well they're made, or you like the story that's told. They're fun. They're entertaining. Great. You know, Superman the movie, Star Wars the movie, you know, these movies are great. These are ones that I would definitely hail as my favorites. But every now and then, you come across a movie, and maybe it's some stupid little movie or whatever, but it just identifies, you identify with this movie so much that it just becomes a part of you. And that is the case with this next movie. It was 1994, and the movie is Brainscan. I really want to know how many of you in the chat have seen this movie. It's so, this was my high school. Like, you know, it's Edward Furlong first, big deal from Terminator 2 quite recently. And he was everywhere, so he's in it. And then there's he was in also the Aerosmith video Living on the Edge, so there's our Aerosmith videos, our posters all over the place. He lives in this, you know, attic, really cool attic space because his father's never home and his mother had passed away. So he lives in this awesome place that I would have killed to have as a child. And that's a funny way to speak about this movie anyway. But really cool setup with his phone, computer, everything. I mean, it's 1994, so he's still watching a tube television, but it's still got the widescreen and it's got the speakers and it's connected to the phone and all this stuff. He's got his virtual assistant, Igor, you know, locked into the phone in his computer. Really cool setup, which I would have loved to have had. He's a major horror film fan, which I actually was too, believe it or not, in high school. His friend, Kyle, I had a friend exactly like this guy, Kyle. He was a guitarist that I played with. I used to call him Nigel because he reminded me of Nigel Tufnell from Spinal Tap. You know, so many things I just identified with in this movie, and it was like, I watched it over and over again as a kid. But I think it's also it's on one level. Well, let me tell you who it's by first. I mean, it's a John Flynn film, but it was written by I can't remember his name without looking at it. Yeah, Andrew Kevin Walker, who, if you guys know screenwriters' names, he of course did Seven. I didn't realize that he actually did Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow as well, but he wrote the script for Seven. He wrote, you know, the Brad Pitt film, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. He wrote the script for The Wolfman, which was changed a lot, but, you know, he wrote the script for the Wolfman remake that they did 2010-ish or whatever. So he's a, you know, he's a great screenwriter, writes a lot of the kind of films and whatnot that I would like to see. They changed it a little bit. They added the character of Trickster, who's this guy here. It looks like it looks like, when you see the image, it looks like it's going to be a horror film. It's really not. I would say it's more psychological suspense. There are horror elements in it, but Trickster is not like some demonic, terrifying entity. He's actually kind of funny. I don't want to spoil the film, but it's so good. I want to talk about some things. On the one hand, it does kind of operate as just sort of a 90s popcorn, scary popcorn movie or whatever. You know, on one level, you could just look at it like that. But there's something deeper in this story, from the script right into the directing and brought out in the performances. And the idea is that the principal questions Edward Furlong's character, and his character's name is Michael too, which my name is Michael. You know, there's just so many ways I was like, this is my movie, you know. But the principal questions him because he wants to put on hiatus his little horror club at school, and he says, "Why do you watch these things? Why do you watch these movies? You know, what is the appeal?" And his character's like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "No, yeah, help me explain. Help me understand what's the appeal of these movies." And all Edward Furlong's character could say is that, well, I guess it's like an escape. And that is a woefully inadequate answer. That's a woefully inadequate reason for just filling your brain with nothing but horror. You know, one of the things this movie helped me realize is that I'm not really a fan of horror. I'm a fan of monster movies. And that's what I say now. And that's what I talk about. I talk about monster movies, and we you know, dissect them and analyze them, because monster movies are a recontextualization and an exploration of good versus evil. And they're an exploration of the shadow self, what lurks in the id of man, and how do we tame and integrate that shadow, and what things should we simply put to death as well within us, you know. And I just love that kind of thing. And I love, you know, straight from the Universal monsters, there they are, being, you know, more empathetic and whatnot, pathos ridden, you know, some of them anyway, to other kind of monster movies. I mean, even all the way to Halloween, you know. And once we get past Halloween, the original John Carpenter's Halloween, I kind of lose interest in the whole horror slasher, you know, genre at that point, because even though you could still argue there's some reasons for this or that and that and this and so forth. Yeah, sure. But it kind of, in my mind anyway, it becomes irreconcilably gratuitous at that point. Much of it anyway, a lot of it anyway. But I love a good thriller. I love a good monster movie. But this is why I'll never say I'm a horror film. And the story deals with that, because the game, the Brainscan game that Michael ends up playing, is a hypnotic like game. It's supposed to be virtual reality somewhat, but the flashes of light on the screen kind of, you know, put yourself in a brain state or whatever, and it makes you feel like you are the killer. Because as Trickster tells him in the game, if you want to experience fear, the terror is in the doing. Become the murderer. You know, and so it's like what we were saying, you know, with the KOTOR game, playing the dark side version of it, but this was way more intense because you actually feel like you're going into somebody's house and grabbing a butcher knife from their kitchen and stabbing them to death, you know, and you know, it gives him that experience. Now, of course, the catch, and you get this from the trailers if you're watching the trailers back in the day, so I'm not spoiling anything. The catch is that he wakes up the next day and realizes, oh, that murder really took place. Oh, crap, that means that was really me murdering the person, you know, and I won't give away any more than that. But it's so great. Trickster's character was T. Ryder Smith plays the Trickster. Phenomenal job. Frank Langella is in this well as the police officer. Great. I mean, Frank Langella, Dracula, Skeletor, Perry White. I mean, that guy's epic. So it has a great cast. And the character of the Trickster was added later in the movie making, because he's in the original script, it was just a voice on the phone that would be talking to Michael and, you know, pushing him to play the next disc and so forth. But they added the Trickster, and some people speculate maybe that was to kind of start a franchise, you know, like get a character that they could make extra movies for or whatever, and he would be this monster's face character that carried through other films. It never became a franchise, which I think is such a shame. I mean, especially today with like crowdfunded comics and everything. A lot of companies, you know, I just got the comics last year for Fright Night, you know, the Tom Holland's, you know, Fright Night extended. I would love to see Kevin Walker, you know, do a you know, do some comics, you know, or sequels to this game or something like that, or movie. But anyway, the Trickster shows up, and he really is, they named him Trickster, and he truly does embody the archetypal trickster in the sense that a trickster blurs boundaries, because the Trickster is blurring boundaries within Michael's psyche, within his own mind, within his own moralities and whatnot. Because he sees nothing wrong with watching all of this horror, with glorying in all of this death and fear and gore. Nothing wrong with it, because it's just a movie, it's just a game. Hey, look, I'm not out there doing it myself. And Trickster asks him the question, real, unreal, what's the difference as long as you don't get caught? You know, and really sort of pushes the issue, which is just so freaking good. This movie is so much more than just some silly, as I said, on one level, and maybe I watched it like this the first time I did too. It operates as just sort of the popcorn scary film, whatever. But you dig into this, there's so much more. And some of it could have been maybe a little, I don't know, if you're looking at storylines and threads or whatever. There's a dog, a German Shepherd, that shows up, which is very much the stand-in for Michael's conscience. The dog shows up a couple of times to possibly have Michael be found out, like he's trying to hide evidence or he's trying to hide from the neighborhood watch or whatever. And Michael keeps saying to the dog, look, I'll never ask you for anything else if you just do this one thing for me. Just, you know, leave me that or go away or whatever. That's a really bizarre, weird thing to say to a dog, a random dog that you don't even know. Ask you for anything? What? But you realize that the dog is kind of a symbol of his own conscience, his own desire to be caught, you know, in some way. And those are the little concessions you make with your own conscience. Once you start down a road, hopefully not killing people, but start down any sort of road that you know is morally ambiguous or morally wrong or whatever, you start making little concessions with your conscience. You start to feel a little pang about that, but then you say, you know, no, I'm not going to worry about that because this is just this one time. It's just this special context and this, and that. And then once you make that little concession, it becomes easier to make another little concession and so forth and so forth. So it's one of my favorite movies, Brainscan. It always has been. I hadn't seen it. I rewatched it this week, and that was the first time in, I guess, since I was a teenager. Man, and it held up. I was kind of curious. I was like, because, you know, you watch some movies when you're younger and they meant so much to you, and then you watch them again and you're like, what did I see in this thing again? But no, this was like one of those, what do they call them? Your core memories. You know, sometimes you have core memories that build up your personality. This was one of my core movies, I think, that just hit at a specific time of my development or whatever in high school, and it worked so well, and I still love it to this day. It's got a really cool soundtrack. Unfortunately, they didn't, like, Aerosmith's not on the soundtrack. You know, I guess rights money wise, but there's also a really cool picture of Alice Cooper, a poster of Alice Cooper on Michael's refrigerator in his attic there. And of course, I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan, so I'm like, yes, that's awesome. And I don't know. It's so great. I even told Sound Engraver last night, the girl, the next door neighbor that Michael has a crush on, he's like, perving on her, not perving on her, but like spying on her some. She actually looks a little bit like Sound Engraver now. So I'm like, man, did I sort of subconsciously feel drawn and attracted to you because you look like this girl from this movie? Of course, Sound Engraver is way hotter than, any girl in any movie. But, So anyway, like I said, I really think if you like this kind of stuff, you would really like Brainscan. Of course, I love it, having the connection that I have to it. T. Ryder Smith he does such a great job as Trickster. And I thought surely this man has like done a ton of things since then, and he has, but it's been mostly like television credits and whatnot. And I guess he was like a Shakespearean actor. That's why he kind of got this role anyway for the language and whatnot. But man, I just thought he does such a great job. I thought he would have done even bigger things since then. It's a shame. Yeah, deals with the shadow self. Just cover my notes here to make sure I didn't forget anything. The terror is in the doing, of course. Talk about the dog representing this and that. So yeah. And I mean, when you get a proven writer like Andrew Kevin Walker, who's done Seven's, I'm glad I saw Seven. I love the idea of Seven and the psychology behind it, but I would never watch it again because it's just, I don't know, it's just too much for my own psyche. But it's really, really good, But then I also loved Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow and of course Wolfman. I understand that those are probably changed a lot from his original drafts, but when you get proven writers that you like their stuff, go for it. Play it again, Michael. Play the next disc, Michael. Play the next disc. What does he say? There's so many great lines. I don't want to give anything away. I told Sound Engraver because one of them is so funny when he's telling Michael, he says, you have to play the next disc because there was a witness. And he's like, well, 2 witnesses if you count me, but I'll never tell. And he does this whole shtick where he's like, even if they pump my body full of 1,000,000 volts, and he puts his finger in a lamp and his electricity flies through him. And this is the Trickster and all his makeup and special effects and everything. He's like, even if they bend back my fingers one by one and you hear his fingers snapping. He said, even if they gouge out my eyes, and he digs his nails into his eyes, you see blood pouring down. Really horrific scene. And then he goes, but please, no country western music. Every man has his limits. That's just like that's the best way to explain the Trickster, because he's unsafe. He's dangerous. He's not safe, but he's also funny. He's not horrific. And he's working to help Michael. I don't want to give anything away. Anyway, it's great. It's great. And I also utterly loathe country western music. So I identify with that as well. Anyway, that's all I got for tonight. Let me check in the chat here and see what's been going on, because I don't want to just ignore people. Also have some super chats. Definitely want to miss those. Let me just as I wrap up here. All right, I think this was the last. This was the first of the super chats that I missed. If you got a super chat in before here that I didn't catch, let me know. But Studio Super said, speaking of technology, I'm wanting to get the Steam Deck, a PC handheld. I've heard of the Steam Deck, yeah, handheld console. It can play new games, but it also emulates old games. The thought of having my old PS2 games in the palm of my hands. Yeah, that's really cool. I have an emulator box, the Retro box, which has almost every game up to, it doesn't have PS1 games. So it's a little older than that. But all the Nintendo, the Sega, the Atari, the Genesis, Super Nintendo, all of that stuff. It just stopped short of PS1 games. But that was kind of a period for me. The PS1 era, I didn't like the N64 PS1 era of gaming technology. It just looked weird. Sound Engraver plays some N64 games sometimes, and I like watching her play. I like the story of it, but that's just too. They were trying to do 3D, and they were so excited that they had the technology to do 3D, but the graphics just didn't measure up to what it really would look like, and there was just a disconnect in my mind. Once you got around to the PS2 era, then I was like, okay, yeah, I can really get into this again. Either keep it 2D like Nintendo, or do it really well, in sort of a 3D setting. But anyway, Nathaniel Lozball said a real good VR story was Ray Bradbury's The Veldt. I'd never read that, and I'm such a Ray Bradbury fan. Oh wait, Veldt. Was that the short story about the room that the children have and the walls? Yeah, I think that was the one where the walls are like screens and they can pick any scene they want or whatever. Yeah, that was a creepy story. I did like that, if that's the one you're talking about. Yeah, that was great. I think it was in the Illustrated Man compilation. So, yeah. Sorry, Nathaniel Zosball, that you like country. I didn't mean to rain on you. I hate it personally, utterly loathe it. But that's just me. It's just me. Other people are welcome to love it. Yeah, it was Crystal Ashes, that PS1 and 64 era. That was Sega Saturn. That was super experimental, and it was fine. I mean, you know, people love, like, yeah, Sandra was talking about Majora's Mask that she loves and stuff. And I'm not saying there's nothing worth playing. I'm just saying, for me, I couldn't get into it. I couldn't suspend disbelief enough. If you're going to make it look like a 3D universe, don't make these weirdly out of focused, and I'm just supposed to pretend that that's grass over there. It's just like, I could suspend disbelief in a 2D world because that was more thematically cohesive. You know, I don't know how to explain it, but like it was all part of the package. 3D was like, here, accept this level of realism, but just pretend that other stuff is also there or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. Oha thinks that the first Silent Hill really benefited as it looked much creepier with PS1 graphics. Maybe, and I think, no, I don't think I played the first Silent Hill. Yeah, because if it's darker and foggier and whatnot, I can see that. Yeah. And I'm a PlayStation guy too. Who said that? Nathaniel Losball. Yeah, I do have an Xbox and I love it. I have the Xbox One, and but I started with a PS2. I mean, I played Nintendo and Sega Genesis back in the day, and then I kind of stopped. And I didn't really come back to games really until the PS2 and the PS3 and PS4. They've given me absolutely no reason, as I've said before, to buy a PS5 or anything past the Xbox One. But yeah, the Switch is fun though. At least the first Switch that Santa Graver plays a lot. So, all right. Well, I am over my hour mark, and my voice is starting to fade a little bit. But hopefully, you guys like some of these. You know, or if you have seen all these movies, great. If you haven't, some of them sound interesting to you. I will cut these out. And when I do cut these out as individual videos, I'll put some images because I only had the hard copy of Brainscan to hold up. So I will put some images from the films and try and sell it a little bit better when I cut these out as their own little review videos. It's just a fascinating subject for me. It's linked to what I say a lot, you know, about stories defining us and so forth. So I love this. You know, this is a premise that'll immediately attract my attention if you're going to make a movie or tell a story about it in some which way. So yeah, so I liked it. Brainscan especially is a favorite of mine, but I like the other ones. Brainstorm, I think, was probably my second favorite out of the ones I talked about tonight. Brainstorm was really tasteful. It just wasn't, there were some holes in it because of everything that happened, and they just weren't able to do everything that they wanted, I think. Videodrome and Lawnmower Man, they're fun, and they've got some really cool ideas and elements and performances. So, Studio Super chat on the way out said, another thing that made me feel old when my friend was playing Spider-Man 2, PS2. He couldn't web swing. I was like, of course not. You've been spoiled by your newfangled games. That is funny. No, I do love the, I mean, like, once you played Witcher 3 or the Spider-Man and you're actually swinging through and stuff, it's kind of hard to go back to some of those games with the limitations back in the day. But there are wonderful stories and there's wonderful gameplay that was back in those. I remember the first Spider-Man game I played was for the Sega Genesis, which was where you could crawl on walls and you could swing, but it was, you know, a side scroller, and you used up your web fluid like anything. You had to, you know, it was, but it was kind of fun. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna video game tonight. I was watching movies all week. I think tonight I'm just gonna go back into Star Wars: The Old Republic, and whatnot. So anyway, that's my stream for tonight. Thank you guys for hanging out. I do. Oh, Chris Lash is saying by Xbox One. Do you mean the original Xbox? I mean the Xbox One. I never played the original Xbox. I got an Xbox 360, and then I got the Xbox One, and that's where I stopped. I play the PlayStation way more, though. Way more than that. So, yeah. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out. I do enjoy chatting with you. You guys had some really cool things to add, and appreciate that. Next time, I don't know what I'll do next week. Oh, next week, yeah, I do know what. Sorry, next week is when I'm let me check the calendar because I got this wrong at one point, told them the wrong thing. Yeah, so next Saturday is the 31st. Yeah, and that's when I'm interviewing Doug Brody, who's the writer of Shelley and the Ship series and all of that. He was a prop illustrator and storyboard artist on movies like Marvel's Thor, Star Trek, Iron Man. There were some other Marvel movies in there too. So look forward to chatting with him, and certainly about his books that I've just been loving. Because like I said, you can find new material. You can find, whether they're books, movie shows, or whatever, actually somehow survives and is good in this world. And I think we need to shine the light on those and really try to put them out there. So do check out Doug Brode. It's Doug, the way you spell Doug, and it's Brode. And I don't have the link in the description tonight because I haven't been talking about his work tonight. But you do go check it out. You should. It's on Audible, and it's on, you can buy it from Amazon anywhere. You can get signed copies from his website, but you can go on Amazon just as you would any other book, or Audible. There are great versions of all these stories. He had a Ship trilogy. Shelley was an excellent book. That's my favorite of his so far, which is about this synthetic, this android character, and he's doing a sequel to that, which comes out this summer. So do check those out. Like I said, you got to support the good new stuff when it comes out. So maybe we can get some more. But make sure it's actually good stuff, not like going to see Lilo and Stitch or something like that. Anyway, not Doug Flutie. The only reason I know that that's a football player is from a Greg Warren stand-up bit, because I don't know anything about sports. But no, Doug Brode, Brode. Sound Engraver's got her stream tomorrow, so check that out. And yeah, next week we'll be chatting with Doug about a lot of cool things, cool movies, and cool writing stuff. And until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the true blue hero stories you love. Thanks for watching.